Hello and welcome to Moments in History. I'm Linda Shenton-Matchett, author, speaker, and history geek. While researching my stories, I unearth tons of intriguing information that doesn't end up in my books, so I've created this channel to share those tidbits with you. I really appreciate you stopping by. I'll be talking about the enlistment of foreign nationals in the American Civil War, a fact I learned recently while researching one of my books. The world looked on with great interest as unrest broiled in the United States around the issue of slavery, a globally divisive issue. As a result, men from abroad traveled across the seas to enlist. When the hostilities first broke out, roughly 13% of Americans were foreign-born, the vast majority concentrated in northern cities. Subsequently, foreign enlistment largely favored the Union, which seemed to be more successful at attracting recruits. Reports vary as to the actual number of foreign nationals in the Union Army, some estimates as low as a quarter, with others as high as 1/3, with numbers ranging from 543,000 to 625,000 out of 2 million troops. In addition, another 18% had at least one parent born abroad, meaning close to half the Northern Army had some recent foreign origin. By contrast, only tens of thousands of foreigners served in the Confederate Army, comprising just 5% of its armed forces. The largest foreign contingents on either side were German, Irish, and British, which also included English, Scottish, and Welsh individuals. The Welsh, with strong abolitionist beliefs, tended to join the Union Army, with over 6,000 men volunteering. Most other foreign recruits were from Canada and the rest of Europe, particularly Poland, France, Italy, and Scandinavia. Smaller numbers came from China, Mexico, Hawaii, and various Native American tribes, which I'll discuss later. Like American citizens, foreigners and immigrants fought in the war for various reasons. Some joined because of loyalty to their adopted homeland. Still others sought economic opportunity, but many were motivated by ideological opposition to slavery. Most immigrants, particularly from Ireland, were fleeing hardship, famine, persecution, but a large number, especially those from German lands, came following the socio-political upheavals that gripped much of Europe in 1848. Many new arrivals had a strong opposition to political oppression of all forms, including slavery. Parallels were drawn between the enslavement of African Americans and the aristocratic exploitation of serfs and peasants. "It isn't a war where two powers fight to win a piece of land," one German enlistee wrote to his family. "Instead, it's about freedom or slavery. And you can well imagine, dear mother, I support the cause of freedom with all my might." In another letter written to his family in Europe, a German soldier said, "I don't have the space or the time to explain all about the cause, only this much. The states that are rebelling are slave states, and they want slavery to be expanded. But the northern states are against this, and so it is civil war." The Union made a concerted effort to recruit foreigners at home and abroad. One recruitment poster written in Italian, French, Hungarian, and German called on 250 able-bodied men, patriots of all nations, to serve their adopted country. Of these constituents, drawn specifically from particular immigrant communities, Germans by far were the largest foreign ethnic group to fight for the Union. Approximately 216,000 Union soldiers were born in Germany, making up roughly half of all foreign-born recruits, and another 250,000 troops were second or third generation, drawn largely from New York, Wisconsin, and Ohio. President Lincoln appointed Franz Sigel, a German veteran of the 1848 revolutions, to the rank of Major General, partly to drive political support among German Americans. Several regiments were composed entirely of Germans and had a reputation for discipline and martial prowess. Many Irish Americans were part of the Irish Brigade, comprised of the Fighting 69th New York Infantry Regiment, the 63rd and 88th New York Infantries, the 28th Massachusetts, and the 116th Pennsylvania, and made a name for themselves with their bravery. They participated in almost every major battle in the Eastern Theater. Another nationality represented in its own regiment was made up entirely by Polish immigrants, recruited by Brigadier General Włodzimierz Krzyżanowski, a veteran of the Greater Poland Uprising, again in 1848. Then there was the 79th New York Highlanders, formed in 1859 by Scottish immigrants and their descendants. Soldiers wore kilts and bonnets and were accompanied by bagpipes. On at least one occasion, the First Battle of Bull Run, they wore trews, a traditional form of tartan trousers, of Clan Cameron in honor of their colonel. The promise of citizenship by joining the Union Army prompted Black Americans as well as Asians, Asian Americans, and Pacific Islanders from countries such as China, the greatest number of enlistees, Guam, Hawaii, Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, Mauritius, Myanmar, the Northern Mariana Islands, India, the East Indies, Pakistan, the Philippines, Polynesia, Samoa, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Tahiti, Thailand, and Tonga. Those individuals struggled to attain citizenship in their own ways. On July 17, 1862, Congress passed the Militia Act that granted citizenship to anyone who served in the military and was honorably discharged. Though it made no explicit reference to race, Asian enlistees were eligible because anyone included resident immigrants. The largest population of Asians to enlist on both sides of the conflict became involved in the Navy forces, which was the first branch of the military to accept soldiers of all races. Many were already mariners and had sea experience. An issue that arose in units not composed of a single nationality was communication. One example was the 39th New York Infantry Regiment that included dozens of nationalities, including Algerians, Turks, Slavs, Swiss, Spaniards, Italians, and Hungarians. It is said that General Sigel had his orders translated from German to Hungarian for his officers, who then translated them into English for command. An interesting aside is that in the earliest months of the war, before the development and adoption of formal encryption methods, Hungarian speakers served as code talkers, much like the Japanese and the Native Americans did in World War II, encoding and decoding telegrams and written correspondences with sensitive tactical information. Protestants and Catholics were both represented within the nationalities, but the largest religious minority in the Union was Judaism, and a large percentage of foreign-born Jews came from German lands. Reports indicate they often faced greater hardship than other foreign groups due to general anti-Semitism, as well as ignorance of their distinct religious customs. For example, pork was often served to all troops without regard to Jewish dietary restrictions. The Confederate Army did not include as high a population of foreign nationals, perhaps as few as tens of thousands, or only 5% of their troops. One of the countries largely represented was Britain, which, although strongly abolitionist, had some sympathy for the Confederacy, largely from those with economic ties to the South, either through selling supplies to the Confederates or dealing in Southern cotton, or who had admired its vaguely aristocratic political hierarchy. Confederate efforts to garner British diplomatic recognition and support culminated in the Trent Affair, during which 2 Confederate envoys were captured from a British mail steamer. The incident almost brought Britain to a state of war with the U.S. until President Lincoln released the envoys. The Confederacy also enjoyed strong support from Bermuda, which had maintained commercial ties with the South since the early 17th century. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to learn even more history, please stop by my blog that's found on my website at www.lindashentonmatchett.com. Please consider subscribing to my YouTube and Spotify channels, Moments in History, to see and hear new episodes that generally release the second and fourth Friday of each month. Click the bell icon in YouTube to be notified of new episodes. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.